Well, hello, my friend, and welcome back to another episode of the Three Little Birds podcast. I'm Amy. It's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I thought I'd talk about something a little bit different, and that is how to learn a new language. Now, if you know me, you'll know I'm married to an Italian and we speak Italian at home. I did learn Italian before I met him, but obviously it helps that I get to practice every day. But before that, I actually was fluent in German. So all throughout my school days, I loved languages. I loved it. It was sort of like solving a puzzle for me in my brain, figuring out which word meant what. And, well, like a magic key, really, unlocking new information. So at school, I studied French and German, and I did those to GCSE, and I got fairly good grades. I think an A in German and a B in French back when there were letters instead of numbers. And then at A level, I went on to study German. I also did English literature and psychology, if you're interested. So, I love knowing how the mind works. I love reading and I really love languages. And so those three subjects fit me to a T. I loved it. And I left college with an A in German. And then I did German and psychology at university. So it was a 4-year degree because with a language, certainly in those days, I don't know how it works anymore, with a language, you would have your third year in the country or countries, if you're doing multiple languages, of the language you were studying, right? So my third year was spent in Germany, living in Germany as a student. So I had experience learning a language through the school system, through the education system here in the UK. And it was great. So with the traditional school system, you go to school, your teacher probably speaks to you mostly in your native language, so English. My mother tongue is English, and you learn vocabulary and you learn ways to say certain things. My name is this, how are you, what's the weather like, how do I get to the station, turn left, turn right, go straight ahead, all of those things. So I learned German through books and through hearing my teacher speak. Any listening tests were native speakers, but speaking very slowly, like, how do you get to the station? And in German. And then you'd have to listen to the conversation and write down the answer. If you've done languages at school, you know what I'm talking about. So, very much slowed down, clear language when you're doing the listening. And usually, your teacher also is often speaking to you mostly in English if you're learning in an English school and sharing things in the foreign language that you're trying to learn. So my German was learnt through books, through repetition, through multiple reading tests, listening tests, all of that stuff. And when I got to Germany, so I went through all the GCSE course and I got an A. I went through the A level and I got an A. I went to university. I did the first 2 years in university, getting amazing grades. At university, usually you've got native speakers of the language who are teaching you, and most of your lessons will be certainly your language lessons will be in your language of choice. So were in German. Although things like the history of Germany and other modules might be taught in English. So it really depends on the course you're studying. Besides the point, sort of besides the point. So in the third year, I thought, this is great. I'm going to live in Germany. It's very exciting. I chose the university I wanted to study at. It was sort of a town that was not too big, not too small, very pretty, right on the fairy tale route, Hans Christian Andersen sort of thing. It was called Göttingen. It is called Göttingen. It's just south of Hanover. Very beautiful town, really pretty, lovely. So I arrived in Germany on a bank holiday and I had to get from Hanover Airport to Göttingen train station, which is not a hard journey, right? It's quite easy. You get the train, it's direct, straight there. So there I am with my suitcase and I just go and ask for directions. I mean, it's literally one of the first things you learn at GCSE. And I go and ask one of the station guards for directions. And he answered me, and I couldn't understand one word that came out of his mouth. I mean, not one word. And I thought, oh my God, have I landed in the wrong country? What's going on? How have I studied German for 12 years and I don't know what he's saying? How? Well, because when you're in school, it is sort of an artificial situation, right? You're not generally taught the slang, idioms. If someone comes to the UK and you talk to a Cockney, it's highly likely it's not going to be the English that you've been learning in school. Okay. So I finally figured out how to get to my halls of residence. I went inside, no shops were open. I mean, don't arrive anywhere on a bank holiday. What a silly idea. There was nothing open, had no food. I mean, I could have planned it better, to be honest. But there was a very kind English family that I'd been in contact with beforehand. So they came around, they dropped off a little bit of food for me. They were really lovely and welcoming. And thank goodness for them, because I would have not eaten that day otherwise. So I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to live here when I can't understand anything anyone's saying? This is crazy. So what did I do? I shut myself in the communal kitchen for a whole week, and I watched Friends episodes in German. And, Friends had been out for a while at that point. I'd seen the episodes multiple times. I knew what they were saying in English, and therefore I could sort of translate in my head what they were saying in German. And they weren't using school German, they were using colloquial German. So it really, really helped me to feel more comfortable listening, first of all, to people talking at a more rapid pace. I mean, I would say a normal pace, because nobody talks like this in any country, in any language. It's just not real life. So I got much used to the pace, the speed of speech. And I got much more used to distinguishing the words. And I became a lot more comfortable over that week, because university, I was there early. The courses hadn't started yet. So I had some time to sort of explore the town, figure out my bearings, find out where you're supposed to go to register and get your books and do this and do that, find food, the supermarket, all of that stuff. So it was so helpful to be there earlier so that I could sort of adjust, my ears could adjust, my brain could adjust to the tempo and the colloquial way people spoke in real life. So that really helped me. Then I was there for, I think it was maybe a week. Yeah, maybe a week after I arrived. So I'm staying in halls of residence. So there's multiple floors. There's a couple of bathrooms on each floor, which I soon discovered were unisex, which was a very interesting experience for me. The German people I met, at least, were very open. Is open the right word? Open, I think, is the right word. They were very open. They were very free. The shower screens were see-through, and there were so you had they had the cubicles for the toilets in one door, and then you walk through another door to the sinks, which had a mirror above them. And then sort of behind the sinks, there were shower cubicles. So every shower cubicle had a sink in front of it with a mirror above it, a large mirror. And the shower cubicles were clear. So if you were having a shower and someone else was in there brushing their teeth, they could see everything. So that was a very interesting experience, especially because they were unisex bathrooms. So I soon bought myself a gigantic towel to hang over the door so that I could have a shower in privacy. And that worked just fine for me for the year. So that was fine. So that was interesting. So in the halls of residence, mostly it was German students, right? Because it was a university and this was a halls of residence for students. But not only local students, not only students from Germany, also international students. So over the various floors, there were sprinkled a number of Erasmus students. The Erasmus program is where if you study a language, you could go and study in the country where they spoke that language. So for me, it was Germany. That's how I came to be in Germany for the year. So I think I was the only English person maybe in the building. There were lots of German people. And then a week after I got there, the Italians arrived. Well, they were amazing, and I'm still friends with them now. And this was like oh my gosh, 26 years ago. They're so brilliant. I love them. And they basically adopted me into their group immediately. I don't think I even had a say in the matter. They're like, "You are ours now. You belong to us. You belong with us. We've adopted you." The end. That was end of discussion. I was like, "Oh, okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much." And I don't know if you've ever met any Italians. You must have seen some Italian people on TV. They talk a mile a minute. I mean, I thought the Germans spoke quickly. Goodness me. Goodness me. And I understood nothing of what they were saying either. So what used to happen was the Italian girls that had come over they'd done sort of very basic German language courses they were mostly from Sicily, in Italy, some of them, mainland Italy. And a lot of them were law students, not all of them. The ones from Sicily were law students. And so their main subject was law. And it's a very intense subject, huge volume of information to take in and study. And so they'd done a sort of introductory language course, and they were coming to spend one semester, most of them, in Germany to cement their sort of language knowledge. So really, they didn't speak German. Certainly, they hadn't studied it for 12 years like I had, right? So I spoke German, certainly to a high level at that point than they did, right? They spoke Italian, and there was one girl in the group who spoke fluent English and Italian. So what used to happen was in the communal kitchen, we made friends with the German people. They were lovely. And so I would translate from German to English, and she would translate from English to Italian. And it was funny. It was fun. We had such a brilliant time. We learnt to communicate with each other, with our hands and all sorts of funny things. Anyway, and what I thought was it would be so much easier if I learned Italian, wouldn't it? Because then I could translate from German into Italian. We wouldn't have to skip through English as the middleman. So not that long into my first semester, I started learning Italian. So I would ask them words for different things, and I didn't have a book. It wasn't like when I learned German where I had you had a book. I had Sag mal. Do you remember that? I've still got one, actually. I love that book. Like the basics. I didn't really have anything. I think I bought a dictionary which went from German to Italian and back again, because obviously, the Germans wouldn't have any cause to have an English-Italian dictionary. Why would they in their bookshops? So I started learning Italian just by listening and repeating. So a very different way of learning than what I was used to. But it really worked really well. And actually, the French I had studied at school, which I thought I didn't remember any of, really, really helped me with Italian, because they're both Romantic languages. So the core, I guess you could say they're from the Latin. So the core of many words is similar. Italian also, if you're looking for an easy language to learn, relatively easy, Italian is quite easy because it's also phonetic. So how you hear it is how you write it, and how you write it is how you say it. So quite easy in that sense. And to be honest, learning Italian was really fun for me because it meant that I could speak to my friends. So having a why, having a reason, a motivation to learn a language really will help you. So first of all that to say, all my life story with languages to say, first of all, I would think about really why you want to learn the language and make sure it's a big enough why. Make sure it's something that will keep you going, because it's not always fun. It can always be fun, but it's not always fun learning a language. You do need to dip into grammar, you do need to dip into reading and other things which can be challenging in a good way. But make sure you know why you want to learn it and that you are convinced that you do want to learn it, because then you're going to keep up your momentum with it. You're going to be consistent. Definitely have a why. I told you I watched Friends in German, and that really helped me. And I found while I was living in Germany, actually, was that there were so many international students, and students from particular countries were exceptional in other languages. And I mean exceptional, like it was second nature to them. They didn't blink. I thought it was amazing that I learned one language. And there were people there that could speak 5 or 6 languages with ease, and they didn't think it was a big deal. And the reason they didn't think it was a big deal was because it was seen as normal in their country. So, for example, there was a girl who lived on the floor above me in the halls who was Belgian, and she could speak, I mean, obviously Belgium is between multiple countries, right? So they border on multiple countries. It's quite a small country. So she could speak Dutch, French, German, English. I think she understood some Spanish. I mean, totally amazing. And so, of course, their education system will be different. There will be a different focus on languages for sure. But what she told me was that the TV in her country was in the native language, so original language, not dubbed. And then they had subtitles in their own language, which really makes a difference because the more you're exposed to another language, the more you'll take it in. So, as I said, I watched Friends in German, and that really helped me. But maybe if you're in the UK, for example, or America or an English speaking country, wherever you are, find a program that interests you on TV, on Netflix, on Amazon, I don't know, and put it on in the native language that you're trying to learn, and then add subtitles in English. And through that exposure, you're just going to get more comfortable, first of all, with the rhythm, with the speed of speech. You get more familiar with the colloquial speech as well, because on TV, it's not usually that stilted, hello, my name is Amy, sort of thing that you would hear in school. It's much more natural. Hi, I'm Amy. How are you doing? So watching TV in the language that you want to study without dubbing is amazing. You could also flip it, so you could also listen to it in English and have the subtitles in the native language. There's so much you can do now with TV. So that's great. You could change the language on your phone. I mean, you're going to have to get by in the language then, aren't you? You're going to have to figure it all out then. And you could listen to music from that country. So, pull up top 40 charts, if that exists, in German or in Germany or whatever. So there's some really great ways to start immersing yourself in the language of your choice. I would also download Duolingo. Duolingo is a really good app and you can do a lot on there for free. Personally, I mean, I used to use Duolingo all the time because I can speak German, I can speak Italian, and I've been dabbling with Spanish over many years now. So I can, Spanish and Italian are quite similar. I can understand, I would say, 80%, 70 to 80%, sometimes more of what people are saying, depending on the topic. But I'm missing the vocabulary to respond, even though I could probably respond in Italian and most Spanish people would understand me, right? But I sort of feel like that's cheating. So Spanish is something that I've always wanted to get better at, also because I have a lot of Spanish friends. So it only feels right that, they can speak my language. I like to be able to speak other people's language as well if I can. So if you do know people who speak the language, ask them if they'll just spend 10 minutes talking to you in their native language. Maybe you ask them to share translations of certain words and you can write them down and revise them, and maybe they hold you accountable. I know in my area there is a conversation group, and it's like a multilingual conversation group. So anybody who wants to speak any language goes along to the group, they have a glass of wine, and if there's 2 people that want to speak the same language, they just have a chat in that language. I mean, what a brilliant idea. When I was in Germany, I did a little sort of tutoring exchange, I guess you could call it. There was I was going to say a boy. He wasn't really a boy. A fellow student, let's say, who wanted to improve his English, which was basically, better than mine. So I don't know what he hoped to learn from me. And then, so we'd speak for 30 minutes in English and then 30 minutes in German. And it was just, to sort of fine tune our language skills. So that's another great way. You can also do that on Zoom. I'm sure there must be an app these days where you can swap language tutoring with somebody. They match you up with somebody from Japan if you want to learn Japanese, and you speak to English in them and they speak Japanese to you over Zoom or whatever. So definitely worth investigating and speaking to a real person or hearing real people speak or sing. Super helpful, because you don't want to do what I do and get to the country and feel like you've spent 12 years learning the wrong language, or that you've landed in the wrong country. So there's other ways you can learn languages. So other ideas that you could use are to create sentences related to your life. So I used to, this sounds really sad, okay? Don't judge me. I used to love reading the thesaurus. I loved it. I love knowing synonyms for different words. So I would sit and read the thesaurus. And so when I learned German, I bought a giant thesaurus in German to figure out synonyms for German words, so that you can always then talk around the subject. So if you don't know the word of the thing you really want to be talking about in that moment, like a stapler, I'm sitting at my desk, I can see a stapler. So if I don't know the German word for stapler, I can find a way of talking around it. So I might describe it. So, the thing that you use when you want to attach two pieces of paper together, and someone might say paperclip, and I'll be like, not quite paperclip, it's made of the same stuff, but it permanently attaches the two pieces of paper together. And they'll say, oh, a stapler. And then you know the word for stapler, right? You write it down, you write down any synonyms, but it's a really good way of learning a language because it makes you get creative. One of the great things about being thrown in the deep end in another country, and there was no Google Translate, all I had was a tiny little German English dictionary that I could use. I never really needed it because I always tried to find a way of talking around the subject to get to what I wanted to talk about. So it's really good to create those synapses in the brain, those connections in your brain, to really throw yourself in the deep end and just scramble away and do your best. And you will be surprised how scrappy and inventive you can get when there's no other alternative. So if you can, I would avoid using Google Translate. If you really genuinely want to learn a language, forget that. Sure, take a dictionary. But if you're going on an Erasmus program, or you have a child who is, or your nephew or niece are going on an Erasmus program or something similar where you go abroad, an exchange program, the first thing I would say is do not speak your mother tongue. Do not. Do not. It's cheating. Most people these days speak English, which is great for them and lovely for us if we don't want to learn their language. Lovely. That's great. Makes it very convenient, but convenient can be too easy sometimes, and it makes us lazy as a nation of English speakers. The language departments at universities these days are quite small because actually now that everyone learns English, no one sees the point in learning another language, which is such a shame because your experience is so much richer when you can speak to somebody in their native tongue. You get so much more from the interaction. You get to learn about their culture and about their sense of humour, which, let's face it, humour is a really hard thing to translate. You get to know about their history. If you can speak someone's language when you go to their country, they're so much more open and generous with their time, and they want to spend time with you, even if you can't say much, just make a little bit of effort. It makes so much difference. It makes so much difference. It's wonderful. It's brilliant. And you don't want to miss out on those little bits, I don't like going to a place where I really feel like a tourist. I always want to make an effort to understand more about the place I'm visiting and their language and what that means and where did their language come from, and how interesting that they say this like we say that, or they say this differently to, how we say it. And that thing was funny, and why was it funny? And you get so much more value and beauty when you can speak someone else's language. So I definitely recommend it, even if it's just saying, hello, how are you? Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Good morning. Good evening. Learn the basics. People appreciate it. It's wonderful. What else? So we've talked about learning from books. I told you I learned German from books and tapes and, school videos and things like that. You can definitely do that. If you want to have no accent. Like if you want to have the accent of a local, the best thing you can do is learn from the locals. That's the best thing. Go and stay in the place for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, a year, however long you've got. Live there. Do not talk your native language. Find a way, make a way to speak the language that you're there to learn. Okay? Do not default. And I know that sounds, easy for you to say, Amy. Well, yeah, okay, it's easy to say, but when I went to Germany, I had to not fight in that sense physically, but I had to fight when I went into a shop because I would speak German. Oh, hello, guten Morgen. I go into the shop and they would hear my English accent and speak back to me in English. And I'm many things, but I'm also very stubborn. I'm a Taurus, okay? We're stubborn. And so I would think, well, that's great that you speak English, but I'm here to learn German. That is literally the sole purpose of me being here, is to learn your language. So they would hear my English accent and speak to me in English, and I would reply in German, and they would reply in English, and I would reply in German. And then we would, end the transaction and I would leave. But all I did was speak German. I stayed away from the giant group of English people that was there as well. And I mean, I sort of cheated because I stuck with the Italians, but thank goodness I did, because that ended up with me learning Italian and meeting my husband. So it all worked out really well. And I still speak Italian today, most of the day when, in the family, we speak Italian at home. And my German, actually, that I was fluent in is now really rusty. But, it does come back when I go back there. So learning from a local and being dogged about speaking the language, say it's Spanish, be insistent, speak Spanish and only Spanish when you're in Spain or South America or wherever you're going. Speak that language only and really make an effort. And I will tell you now, it's exhausting. It's so tiring. Your brain will be like, it will feel like you've run a mental marathon every single day. And it'll probably get to the end of the day and you'll be mixing your words up like there's a language salad in your head. Any old random thing will pop out. It's fine. Stick with it. It's just practice. It really is. It's mental practice. It's, exercising that mental muscle. Keep at it. And then you say to me, but Amy, I haven't got a year to go and live in another country. Okay, well, let's do the other things I suggested. Get yourself a notebook, write down in there whenever you are listening to, let's say it's Spanish, right? Because it's just easier to talk about one language. Whenever you're listening to a Spanish song and you hear something that is not familiar to you, I don't know what that word means. Look up the phrase. You can get all the lyrics online these days of any song. So look up the lyrics, translate it for yourself with a dictionary if you can, and write it down. And then when you hear that, maybe you memorize the lyrics to a song. That's how my husband learned English. He listened to Pink Floyd and Madonna and translated the words, and that's how he learned English. I mean, amazing, really. So you can listen to music, you can get yourself a vocab book, get yourself a little dictionary. You can change the language on your phone. You can watch movies or TV in the target language, let's say Spanish, with English subtitles. Or you could watch it dubbed in English with Spanish subtitles. Or better still, you could watch it in Spanish with Spanish subtitles so that you can read it and hear it at the same time. And obviously, if you're watching the movie or the TV show, your brain will sort of fill in the gaps, right? Because you're looking at them and you're seeing what they're doing. And then your brain will make sense of what the words mean. Because you've got the visual cues, you've got the audio cues, and you can read the words as well. I would look for any similarities. So there are core words which are very similar in most, I would say, European languages. So things like the word station, right? So you're going to watch movies, you're going to watch TV, you're going to listen to the music, you can change the language on your phone. You're going to download Duolingo and do that even just 5 minutes a day. Do that. Consistency is key. So we're not going to sit down and expect to learn an entire language in one day. Just do 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes. It's all good. That's all you need. If you can go to the country, do that. And if you can go to the country and not speak your own language, I swear to you, by the end of a week or two, you will be flying. You will have figured out so much. You can create sentences about or related to your own life, that is super helpful, because then, the usual questions, really, in any language, we use the same few hundred words repeatedly. It's very unusual that an English person will know all the English words that there are. You may have heard them, but you probably don't use them over and over. There are a certain number of words that we use repeatedly over and over and over again. So if you can get familiar with those words and you can get the basics, then you can sort of add on as time goes on. So create your own sentences, 50, maybe 100 sentences about your own life. So, hi, my name's Amy. This is what I do for work. I have 2 kids. I'm married to an Italian. I live in London. I drive whatever car. My hobbies are X, Y, and Z. Write down some sentences that make sense to you. Start speaking as soon as you can. As soon as you can. I used to do Duolingo on the train to sort of refresh my memory on German, just to keep it fresh, because I don't speak it every day like I speak Italian every day. And I would always, I was on the train, right? So I would tend to skip the speaking bits. Duolingo is great because it touches on all the things: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And I would tend to skip the speaking stuff because I was on the train and it was sort of embarrassing. But actually, what I found was when I was at home and I did the speaking stuff, I felt immediately more confident. Felt so much more confident. Oh, yes. And it cemented it much more quickly in my brain. So start speaking. Even if you're talking to yourself at home on your own, it helps train your mouth and brain to function together, because usually you'll understand a lot more than what you can say. That's usually step 1 of any language. Like you get it. It's in your brain. You sort of understand it, but you stutter over the words because you're not practiced at saying things. So say it, say it, say it, say it. There's so many videos these days to help you with learning a language. You can literally learn anything on YouTube for free. So I would definitely dip into that too. And if you can find a friend, or if you have a friend who speaks that language, or you can make a friend who speaks that language, do that. That's amazing. And something I would say is, when I was learning German, I was always afraid to make mistakes. I didn't like to say something and then it be wrong. I found that really embarrassing, and I would give myself a really hard time. You made that mistake. It was so obvious. Listen, everybody makes mistakes. Even English speakers speaking English make mistakes. So what I can tell you is, if you don't speak, you won't learn. So speak. Speak, make all the mistakes you want to make. And when I learned Italian from listening to my friends talk and then sort of repeating and just fumbling my way through with no books initially, I learned really quickly, and I wasn't afraid of making a mistake because I just wanted to talk to them. So if I made a mistake, we just had a laugh and they corrected me and we moved on. And it really wasn't a big deal. And I learned so much more quickly that way. And I learned so much more that way than I would ever have done by reading a book. So no shade to books, no shade to language books, but speaking is the key. Really, it is. So the more you can speak, and I made some shocking mistakes in Italian. Oh my word. Okay, I'll share one with you. My mother-in-law, who was not my mother-in-law yet at the time, was making jam, and I was trying to say in Italian. At this point, I've been speaking Italian for a few years, right? But this word had never come up before. So what I was trying to say was, it's so great to make your own jam because there's no preservatives in it, right? And, if you know about languages, often words are the same. So you can just add the Italian or German or whatever ending on, and it's the same word. And so I did that. I just thought, I'll just take a guess. And I said, I used the word, I translated the word preservative into preservativo. And if you speak any Italian, you'll know that preservativo means condom. It doesn't mean preservative. Now, that lesson I learned immediately, you'll be surprised to hear. I never, ever, ever made that mistake again. And the look on her face is what really cemented it into my brain that preservativo does not mean preservative. Okay. So make the mistake, have a laugh, move on, and you will never forget, my friend. You will never forget when you make a mistake like that. So speak, 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 speak as much as you can. Listen to the music, watch the TV, watch your movies, download Duolingo or something similar. Write down sentences about your life in the language. I would avoid using Google Translate personally because really it's skipping a step. What you want is to create those connections in your brain, and you're not going to connect them if you're relying on a device to fill in the gap. Do you know what I mean? So, all of that, and never forget the reason why you want to learn, because that is what's going to keep you going when it feels really hard and when you feel like, ugh, do I really want to learn Spanish? I mean, they all speak English and I could use Google Translate, and really I'm only going there for however long. You do want to learn it, just remember why you want to learn it. Something else I would say is never have a day where you do nothing, all right? Do something tiny every single day, and this counts for any goal, right? But do something small every single day towards achieving your goal. And if your goal is speaking Spanish, maybe you just wake up in the morning and say buenos dias to yourself in the mirror, all right? That counts. But don't have a 0 day and don't have 2 0 days in a row, okay? Because you don't want to create a habit of not working towards your goal. You want to keep up momentum. So it's not about motivation. It's not about doing it all in one day. It's about little and often. So if you are looking to learn a language, I hope those ideas helped, and I hope you laughed at my at my stories. And let me know. I'd love to know what languages you're looking to learn. If you're looking to learn Italian, we could have a little chat next time we meet. And if you're looking to learn German, I can certainly try and fish it out of the back of my head and have a conversation with you or reply to an email in German. Good luck to you. It's a super fun journey learning a language, and honestly, it will open so many doors that you didn't even know existed, right? Learning German led me to learn Italian, which led me to meet my friends, which led me to meet my husband, and now I speak Italian every day. I mean, I literally had no idea that that was on the cards for me. So you never know where it will take you. I encourage you to try it, try everything, make it as fun as you can make it, because the more fun you have, the more firstly, the more you're going to stick with it and the more you will remember. Okay. So as the Italians say, in bocca al lupo, as the Germans say, viel Glück, and good luck to you. You're going to be amazing. Okay. Have a great day. Bye.